Welcome to the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. Your hosts, Bill McKenna, Paul Robert, and special guests discuss ideas for creating alignment in your sales and marketing efforts and ways to accelerate growth. Now let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. I'm Bill McKenna, and my co-host is Paul Roberts. Say hello, Paul.
Hello, Paul. Actually, I was going to say hello, Mr. Bill, but I don't know. Have you been called Mr. Bill? Some of our audience may not even know who Mr. Bill is, Bill.
Yeah, I've been called lots of things, and there's only a hand. I remember, hello, Mr. Bill. I remember that from a long time ago. Yeah, if you're,
yes. So
I
YouTube
that.
it, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, some of you people might be listening that are a little older, and let's say, like myself, you might remember it. But there's only a few people that call me Billy. And the truth is that I do have a few that still call me Billy, and one of them's my sister. She calls me Billy. And I had an aunt that used to always call me Bill, and a few other people. But very rarely do I get Billy. I occasionally get William. But yeah, it's funny how we have like old nicknames. How about you, Paul? Do you have any relatives that, they could call you all kinds of things, but...
Yeah, well, Paul isn't very adaptable, so... It's either Paul or maybe a Paulie, but no, it's been Paul most of the time. So.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. So, hey, today I want to talk about a couple things. We recently, well, not too long ago now, we were in Florida doing some sessions together, and we've done a bunch of them. And one of the ones that we did these for CU conferences, who we've spoken for a number of times. And for those of you not familiar with CU conferences, they have a whole bunch of sessions they do for credit unions. Been doing it for a bunch of years. I think their slogan's the ones in red, because every time you go there, they got red stuff on. But but the sessions we did were a few different ones. And one of them that I did was called the Battle for Attention. And I think we're going to talk for a few minutes today about attention, what that looks like, and how it works in the credit union space. Make sense, Paul?
Absolutely. I think it's huge for credit unions, Bill, because we've never had to worry about it very much. The members always came to us. The new wave of members always came to us. We never had to battle for attention. But, man, there's so much competition out there now, and there's so much visibility of competitors that we didn't even know existed. So totally, we have to have a strategy for getting attention.
And we are so overwhelmed today with information. We consume it constantly, all day, and on devices we're looking at, or something we read, or a TV program we're looking at. We stream information, right? So getting attention, getting us to actually pay attention to what you're saying is not easy anymore. So how do we get attention? Well, first of all, the big question is, here you go, big reveal. What is the one thing all marketing needs for success? Well, what it is, it's attention, right? We don't have any success unless we get attention. So no matter what we want to talk to people about, whether it's a product or service or who we are, we need attention. We need them to listen to us. And if they don't do that, our message is not going to get heard. But the news alert here is many credit unions are not really great at getting attention. We see them trying, but they're not necessarily great at that, because we really do live in an over-communicated society today, right? We have so much going on.
I would say, Bill, that the many credit unions that I've worked with, the message that they're putting out isn't the message necessarily that their members or prospective members need to hear. And so, I think part of it is lack of understanding. Who are we trying to appeal to? And I know you talk a lot about segmentation, but even if it's not segmentation, I think it's just being clear on what's our value proposition. What are we trying to put out there that the community needs to hear in order to make an educated decision about choosing us versus all those other competitors out there?
Absolutely true. And when you talk about lifestyle segmentation, here's something that I always mention. Most people do not change a financial institution unless they've had a change, a lifestyle change of some sort, right? So they don't just change. They don't, well, you know what? I think today I want to go through all the trouble of getting rid of my mobile app. I want to do everything I can because it's just going to be fun to do all of that. We know that it's nothing fun about that. But what does trigger that, the lifestyle triggers, someone who is retiring, right? Someone who changes a job, someone who's moving to a new area. Maybe their kids are graduating college or, Paul, so you talk about that all the time with your team, how to be aware of these lifestyle triggers, how to identify them, and how to get it both in person, right, with a person when we see them and we have that conversation. But then when you talk about marketing, and we'll get back to that, how do we use marketing to really effectively manage those triggers?
I would go so far as to say, Bill, that we have to anticipate those lifestyle changes too. So you can't wait for it to happen because then it's too late, right? Because you never know what a member is being tempted by. That was very poor grammar, but you know what I'm trying to say, that they're getting all of that, those offers and those temptations from other financial institutions. You never know what's going to click or what's going to trigger them to say, hey, maybe now's the time to change. You've got to anticipate that. We've got to train our people to know through conversation that, hey, you've got someone graduating, or you are looking to move or make a big purchase, or, going to be getting married or changing jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've got to know those things as soon as possible so that we can intervene and we can make sure that we lock down that member and they don't leave us, or appeal to prospective members who are going through similar lifestyle changes.
Yeah, and when you talk about segmentation, right, you got two things we're talking about here. One is like the people side of the segmentation. Let's say the communication one-on-one type things with a member. And Paul, you work so closely with credit unions, helping them to understand that and understand their sales culture and what to say and how to be aware of those things. And then the other side of segmentation is the digital, the marketing side of segmentation, right? So on the marketing side of segmentation, you're looking at how you use effective digital marketing today to find those people, to segment, to find the opportunities digitally out there. And there's all sorts of things. Again, we could do a whole seminar on that today. But when it talked about data, the data side of things, there's also, so it's getting new members, it's getting them to see your products and service, getting their attention. Then on the other side, internally, the low-hanging fruit for most credit unions is deepening relationships with the ones you have.
Right.
And that takes a different type of data. That's removing the silos in your data. That's maybe better automated marketing. And how do you use a website effectively for retargeting and all of those things that we talk about today in modern marketing. So, and that's super important because you can't segment effectively if you're saying the same offer to each person. Everyone's needs are different. The same offer is not good for an 18-year-old and a 70-year-old, nor are the conversations, right, Paul?
Yeah. And, Bill, you talk about data, and for so many years, data has been a marketing function or gathering data, but it hasn't been shared. And at the same time, the retail side of the organization hasn't actively sought it out. So, we've got to make sure that we seek out that data that will help us be successful. And, I think everything that we're talking about here, Bill, falls under the umbrella of having a plan. Right? Crossing your fingers and toes and hoping isn't a plan. It's not a strategy. You've got to really figure out, okay, what data do we need? How are we going to utilize that data? How do we need to align our people with that plan and that data going forward in order to be optimally successful?
Here's just a quick shout out to our sponsor, ironistic.com. Hey, in today's world, everyone knows the importance of having a great website and having an integrated digital marketing plan. If your credit union, community bank, or any other company is looking for that help, I can highly recommend ironistic.com. Check them out.
So one of the important things I think is creating value, right? We want to create value in the lives of our members or the people we're dealing with. And that value can be created through different types of content. We create content, whether that's in-person conversations with people about what's important to them or lifestyle segmented type discussions. And some of that content could be in the form of, for instance, financial literacy. Right. That seems to be a really hot topic, Paul, right? We hear more and more about credit unions trying to help people to manage money more effectively. I'm sure you discuss that on a regular basis with your teams.
Totally. And it really is a differentiator, if for no other reason, Bill, than a member can't get it anywhere else besides a credit union. No other financial institution is doing it. Schools aren't doing it anymore. Community groups don't have the expertise, even if they have the time to do it. So the credit union is an only source, but a really critical and valuable source for providing that financial education. And here's one point that we really try to stress, Bill, is don't assume that just because someone has a lot of different financial products in their portfolio, that they know about those, that they're knowledgeable about those, So really being proactive, making an outreach to help educate members on the financial products that they have or are considering for the future, their credit scoring and reporting and so forth, everything related to finances. Credit unions are an incredibly valuable, if not the most valuable source for those members and non-members as they move forward.
Without a question. And again, there's a lot of segmentation that's super important here. I know I keep using the word segmentation, but we have to make sure that we're really creating content for the people on those different age groups and those different categories. For instance, business. A lot of credit unions are doing more business stuff. That content for businesses is different than the personal level. It's right. Different conversations that we have. And the other important thing is, whether it's a blog article, whether it's video content, whether it's a podcast like what we're doing, whatever that might be, it's getting people's attention to actually see it.
Right.
So, and this is a big problem because I see a lot of credit unions going and doing some content or a little bit of content, but they're not getting eyeballs on it and they're not getting people to see it. This is where the importance of a really strong digital marketing program makes so much sense. And again, in segmentation, getting the data that we have about our members or buying appended data, where are they doing business other places so we can have those conversations with those people. Maybe it's through email, which, by the way, is very effective. So we have to not only do the content, we have to make sure they see the content and we get their attention. Otherwise, it's not making a difference.
An important part of seeing it, Bill, in my opinion, is having more than just one way to get it out there or one predominant way. You've got to have multiple ways of getting it. And I think there's two reasons for that. Number one, not everybody receives communication the same way, right? And I don't care what your age is or what your segment is. People receive communication differently, and it's at different stages of life. It's at different stages of what's going on in your life presently. The second reason is if I see something once, it might resonate with me. But if I start to see it 2 or 3 or 4 times, now all of a sudden it's going to stick in my mind. And I think that's a real important part of messaging, is making sure that we do it through a variety of different channels and we do it frequently. And I know that's a word that you use a lot. I think that's a whole nother presentation, is around frequency, Bill, but it really is critical to making the point and getting and keeping attention.
It does. And I've seen, again, a lot of credit unions that understand this in theory, but the problem is they're not executing it in real life. They're just not. They're not building enough content, and they're
Right.
not using frequency, which you're right. I'm a passionate person about frequency. We have got to have messages frequent in front of people if they want to think of us. We think they're just going to remember the credit union when all these other people are marketing to them every single day. They're
Right.
seeing new ads. They're seeing really big companies that have huge budgets, and they're seeing 5 credit card offers in their mailbox every day, and
Right.
they're expecting, why are we not getting more credit card users?
Right.
They're not using
Right.
frequency. They're not using the right offers to the right person at the right time.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Another part of branding, Bill, is really kind of around reputation, right? And I know you talk about that with your clients, but really being a gatekeeper, if you will, of our reputation is important. And one of the things that I talk to clients about from a sales perspective is don't hesitate to toot your own horn, because if you don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. But our reputation is something that we have to guard very closely because, it factors into the sales and marketing success so much. Would you agree with that?
Without a question. And I think the stats that we use all the time when it comes to, even online reviews, for instance, such an important role they play in people choosing a product or service.
Right.
That's a reputation management tool that you have. Online reviews are powerful. No one does anything without checking them out. So
Right.
we know that it's important that we do that. And also our reputation, even just from a word of mouth.
Right.
We've seen so many credit unions that were this particular sponsor, and they had this amazing reputation because they served that group so well. Then they went community, and less people know about them, who they are.
Right.
So the reputation of the person that's done business with them for years, they may think very highly of that credit union. But then
Right.
the new people, they know nothing about that credit union. They're trying to build a reputation, and then when they check them out, it's based on what they're seeing. They're seeing,
Right.
they go to their website, they check out, or they see a social media posts or whatever.
Right.
But building a reputation and maintaining that, again, that's different for different audiences.
So let's nuance that a little bit because I mentioned a moment ago that you need to be able to brag about yourself, but do it in a way that is representative of what you hear from your members. So, in other words, don't say, here's who we are, or this is what we do, or things like that. Say, here's how we help members, or here's what our members like about us, or we helped a member succeed in this area recently, and well, Bill, I think it's an area that, maybe we can help you be successful in as well. So it's kind of a different twist on the reputation and what you would find by looking at consumer reviews. You're now turning that into a way of bragging about your credit union and really making it a statement as to why that person should choose you versus everybody else.
Yeah, it really is almost the art of storytelling when you think about it.
Yeah, right.
It's a story. You're telling a story, whether that's a one-off story about a particular product or a person you helped. But it's saying here's what we can do for you, and it's telling a story. And storytelling is super powerful.
Sure is.
So it could be in the form of just simple testimonials. For that matter, testimonials are powerful, but it's all about reputation management. I want to jump back to what I said in the beginning for a minute, though. Getting attention. So we're talking about getting attention, creating value, segmentation, but there's different types of marketing to get attention, right? You have certain stuff that's more what we call low cost marketing or low cost attention. And those are email and social media and a lot of things we need to do on a regular basis. And then we also have the more high priced attention, the radio ads, the TV ads, the billboards, even the direct mail, although it's very powerful, it's a little more expensive per unit. But the importance of getting attention, all of that's required. That's where frequency comes in. You have to be in front of the right people on a regular basis with the right messages if you want to get attention. And then the call to action, right? Paul, we talk about this all the time. Sometimes someone is not ready to buy yet. You might have an offer for a home equity loan or a car loan or a financial planning service, a wealth management program. They're not ready to call Paul, or they're not ready to apply online, but they are ready to listen about the value that you bring. So the call to action might be to visit the website about a blog article, or it might be to read something else or some other piece of content that we create. Keep it in mind always that people may not be ready to buy yet, so we have to be careful that we're just not selling all the time with what we do.
And that's a real important component of sales, Bill, in the credit union environment. And that is, we're not Wells Fargo, and we don't ever want to be Wells Fargo. So we're not going to create an environment where you're not getting up from my desk until you buy 8 products. But what we can do is I can plant 8 seeds that can be cultivated over time as we move forward, where ultimately we will have a relationship with you where you have 8 products with us. It's a completely different way of looking at sales. And Bill, I would say it's also an integral way of how sales and marketing need to work hand in glove. Because if I plant those seeds, I want to follow up on those with that content marketing that you're talking about, to send you an email that says, hey, here's an article about saving money. And remember when you were in last week, Mr. McKenna, we talked about you having a savings plan. Well, here's an article that builds on that a little bit. That's sales and marketing working hand in glove to cultivate those seeds that were planted during that sales process.
Right. And that's absolutely true. And then again, one of the areas that credit unions fall short in the execution of that is to have the tools to make that really quick and automated, because it's really hard for like the teller after they talk to Bill or the member service person to say, okay, what do I send out? And, there should be a process in place for them that makes it really easy for them to do that follow-up, and maybe not even them do that at all, but someone else do it for them based on that conversation through a CRM. That's where that data and integration, because this is all about member experience. This is all about creating a seamless member experience, whether it's through a personal conversation, an online loan application, a digital interaction on your mobile device. It's all about member experience. The smoother the process, the better chance we're going to get a really quality, happy member. And we're also going to close more deals, because if we take away the hindrances to that, right, the obstacles that could be digital, we're going to lose business if those obstacles are there. And that's what today is being done by institutions and independent financial organizations that are doing things so well, fintechs. They just eliminate the obstacles, right?
And I would add to that, Bill, that one of the best ways, if not the best ways, of attracting new members is through, you mentioned testimonials earlier, but personal referrals, be members talking about how much they love their credit union and why. And that doesn't come naturally. We have to kind of stoke that a little bit. We've got to encourage people to tell their family and friends about us. They're not just automatically going to go to Thanksgiving dinner and brag about their credit union. But in a one-on-one conversation, if we've planted that seed, they may want to do that. So I think that's an extension of what you're talking about as far as keeping the visibility out there.
Yeah, and wrapping it up here today, I think again, it's this conversation, we talked about it prior to the podcast. It's all about attention. We have to get attention, and the right type of attention. We have to do that. If we don't, we're not going to move the needle. And whether that's attracting new members or whether that's deepening the relationships with the ones we have, which is the low hanging fruit. It is the ones we have. Those are going to be the easiest ones to penetrate. It's all about getting attention. Yeah. So Paul, I appreciate your time today. I know it's funny how when we have these conversations, all these things kind of weave together, right? It's like, it's not one thing or another, but you start thinking about this, and then this one here really relates to that. And then data comes in, and then how do we do the personal conversations? And, all of it works together. It's not one thing. It's like the pie illustration I use, which we remember when I forgot the sugar. Looked like a pie, but it sure didn't taste like one.
Right. And one last thing to remember, Bill, and I've used this line before, but it's really important. What got us here isn't what's going to get us in the future. And so when you talk about sales, marketing, everything that we've covered here today, I don't really care how successful you've been in the past, because you really need to strategize for how you're going to be successful going forward.
Without a question. It's a bunch of things together, and stuff, it's changing so quickly. We have to be aware of that. But Paul, as always, it's been great talking to you today. We'll catch up to you again on the next episode of the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. As a matter of fact, I think I should finish that in my radio announcer voice, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. Matter of fact, I've been accused at times, even though we're wrapping it up, some people get my voicemail and I'm like, "Hi, this is Bill McKenna. Let me know." And they're like, they start to leave me a message. They don't realize it's me.
It's really you. Yeah. Right.
See you next time, Paul.
All right, Bill. Take care, buddy.